Mesdames et messieurs, pour votre sécurité, veuillez écouter attentivement l'annonce qui va suivre. Vous trouverez les consignes d'urgence affichées au poste de rassemblement.
Hearing French spoken on an announcement means that you are on board a ferry with me, Stevie and Zog, and we're on our way to the 2017 Le Mans 24 Hours. Bonjour et bienvenue au Gareth Jones sur la Vélocité. Hiya, welcome to Gareth Jones on Speed. I'm Gareth, he's Zog.
Hello.
And he's Stevie.
Hello.
And welcome aboard a rather comfortable way of travelling to the Le Mans 24 Hours. We have chosen a rather nice vehicle for the trip this year. They're always nice vehicles, but this year we've got something that's quite luxurious, I would say. It's a Jaguar. It's a Jaguar XJ. It's a Jaguar XJ R. It's a Jaguar XJ R-Sport. Turbo V6 with 300 brake horsepower, which I set off from my home in North London this morning at about 6 o'clock. Current time is 3:30 local time, so 2:30 UK time, and we are careering across northern France, heading south and west towards Le Mans. I've had a spell at the wheel of the car. Zog is yet to drive, but the man who's in charge at the moment, who is on his third trip to Le Mans, is your friend of mine, Stevie Sakin. Stevie, how are you liking the Jaguar?
Very nice indeed so far, thank you. It's beautiful car. So comfortable, so smooth, and very, very powerful.
It is quite healthily powerful. When I first got in the car, the first thing I noticed was its urgency on the getaway. You know, you touch the throttle and it wants to do 40 as soon as you touch the pedal. So you have to be a little circumspect.
But at any speed, it feels as though there's an awful lot more to be had.
Yeah. Now, Stevie's no stranger to driving large, heavy, luxurious vehicles. His car of choice is one of my favourites, the Mercedes-Benz R-Class. You've got the R320, haven't you?
I do, and it's a beautiful car, but I mean, it's a beautiful people carrier. This is a very, very different beast. It's the luxury and comfort is really special.
It's nice to hear you say that, because you know, you think of luxury and comfort and you think of Mercedes and you think of Rolls-Royce and Bentley. It's good that Jaguar can deliver something of that sort of higher echelon. That's good to hear. What the first thing you noticed then, Stevie, when you got in it?
It felt very solid on the road, very sure-footed, Zog said, and I think that's right. Instantly I felt that the thing was very, very well, just comfortable on the road, and the power immediately to get up to whatever speed I wanted. There was a truck coming towards us from behind, and I had no concerns that I was just going to pull onto the road ahead of him. Really, really very, very nice.
What do they say? Power in reserve. That's what they say, don't they? That's exactly what it's got. Yeah, Stevie's been sitting in the back for the first part of the journey. He's now driving, and I'm sitting in the back seat. Zog's in the front as wingman. And Stevie kept saying, you know, it's really nice back here. There's loads of legroom, and that rear seat is really comfy. And then I pointed out to Stevie that this car comes with all sorts of wonderful accessories, things like ventilated seating. So rather than just heated seating, you can set the temperature to be cool underneath your bum. So if you're old and suffer from hemorrhoids, it's a very pleasant thing indeed. Zog, how are you doing in the front? You liking the Jag?
I've had minutes of pleasure. I'm not kidding you. Simply playing with the motion sensing switch for the glove compartment. You don't even have to touch it. You just have to bring your finger near to it and pop. There it goes.
You like that, don't you? Yeah, do it again.
Here we go.
Zog's playing a game.
I'll tell you how much fun I've had with that.
He's playing a game of proximity fun here, where he's holding his finger, I don't know, about 10 centimetres away from the centre and gently moving it towards until it pops. Nice, fun.
It's even better when you kind of do a little make it so.
Yeah, yes.
That's good.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, we like it, and I'm glad Zog likes it, because you're the reason we're travelling in this year and not a Ford Ranger pickup.
I'm very happy to take credit for it, given that I did absolutely nothing at all to secure this car, other than suggesting that driving in, some kind of reasonably swift sports car, or at least a sporting mark, would be better than a pickup. I tend to go for performance over practicality.
Yeah.
But this actually has, the right blend. With the small sacrifice of not packing the biggest tent that Gareth has, we've been able to fit everything in the car. So,
It's true.
It's a perfect ride.
There have been compromises. We've been coming to Le Mans for 13 years, something like that now. And over the years, every time you go to Le Mans, next year you think, I'll bring chairs next year, or I'll bring a table, or I'll bring 2 cooking rings, or I'll bring a bigger tent, or we'll bring a toilet tent, or we haven't got a toilet tent, but you just keep adding stuff, and so your needs get greater. And last year we came in a lovely Nissan Navara pickup. I say lovely because it was generous in space, and as you know, space is the ultimate luxury, so we were able to take absolutely everything and had a lovely old time. Now, to fit everything in this car has been a little bit of a struggle. It's been a number of compromises. I've packed half the amount of clothes I normally bring. We haven't brought any chairs. We haven't brought what I call the kitchen, this sort of stand-up thing that you cook on. We haven't brought a table, but the plan is to buy 3 small chairs as we approach Le Mans from one of the many French decathlons, and to buy 3 air beds, because we couldn't even fit in our nice self-inflating mattresses, which are essential for good night's sleep, especially when you've got a bad back like me. But we are going to grab a couple of cheap and filthy bits as we approach, and that's about the only compromise we made, really. We managed to cram everything into the boot, just about. Anything else is in the back seat. There's only 3 of us travelling, so 40% of the back seat is turned over to passenger space, 60% is turned over to bags of, mainly electronic equipment. You know what we're like, we all travel with too much stuff. A couple of disappointments with this car. The first one was that the rear seat doesn't fold down. I didn't remember that. I was pretty sure when we had an XJ about 7 years ago on Gareth Jones on Speed that the rear seat did fold down, so I thought that would be useful for bringing long stuff like European flags and stuff, which I like to fly. So some of that couldn't fit in. Neither does it have what they call the ski slot. If you fold down the centre armrest, there's usually a gap which allows you to reach into the boot and put long objects through. It doesn't have that either. So I was a bit miffed about that. But I was most miffed about the fact that you can't fit a top box to this car. I've got a fairly sophisticated, very multi-purpose set of roof bars, aerodynamic roof bars, which will go on pretty much any car with all the adapters I've got, but they simply won't fit on this. Because of the way that the door line meets the roof of the car, there is no way you can mount roof bars on this car and carry a top box. So that meant the chairs and all that stuff couldn't come with us. But I'm willing to make that sacrifice because it is a delicious car to travel in. The ride is really lovely, and it's airy and swift, and a Le Mans winning mark. And as we were discussing earlier on before we started recording, Jaguar have won Le Mans 7 times, late 80s and middle 50s. Part of the deal of going to Le Mans, as you know, for Gareth Jones on Speed, is to travel in a car which has either raced at Le Mans or preferably has won at Le Mans. So considering the luxury that we're travelling in, I'd say we've won Le Mans this year. Agreed, boys?
Oh yeah, definitely.
The reassuring sound of endurance racing cars, the soundtrack to the weekend at Le Mans. Hello again. We've arrived. What a great journey. It was unbelievably easy this year. Very often when you come to Le Mans, you spend pretty much as long doing the last 10 miles as you approach the circuit. as you do the rest of the journey, but we breezed here today somewhat inexplicably. We're now installed at the campsite, as usual, the Porsche curves. We are adjacent to the circuit. I started recording this piece by our tent, and in the time it has taken me to tell you this, I've walked up to the viewing point right next to the circuit at the Porsche curves, the new slightly wider Porsche curves with an increased gravel trap for safety, because Porsche curves is a fairly dangerous place to go through at pace, at the sort of pace that the cars are doing at the moment. We've been listening to Radio Le Mans, and we've already heard that a record has been broken by one of the Toyotas, already the fastest ever lap of the Circuit De La Sarthe, which I believe was 3 minutes 14, is that right, if memory serves, which is quite something. The wind is blowing, the mood is good, and I'm surrounded by people like me wearing shorts and t-shirts with cameras, headphones on, here for exactly the same reason as me, not just to eat curry and make podcasts, which is also what I'm doing, but to enjoy racing cars. Curiously, no cars have come round. I'm wondering if there's been a red flag. I haven't got my radio on at the moment, so I'm not listening to the commentary, so it's difficult to know what's happening, but the cars which were going round here at the 10 o'clock qualifying session have stopped going round at the moment. What's a disappointment, because I was going to record some of the sound of the cars. It's the sound of a helicopter instead. Let me paint the scene for you like a good broadcaster, filling. I'm standing on a raised bank directly in front of me, the Porsche curves, and here comes a car off the straight now. What's this? Hang on, quite quiet. That was a Porsche 911 RSR. As someone said to me the other day, yes, they've admitted defeat. They finally turned a Porsche 911 into a mid-engine car instead of a rear-engine car by moving the gearbox to the other side of the engine. I've been listening to the new Gibson-powered LMP2s. What's this coming round here now? Hang on. Aston. And one of the Ferraris. And that's Tracy Krone's Ferrari going by very quietly, actually. That don't think he was going through at the sort of pace of the previous Ferrari. Listen to the LMP2, the Gibson's engines that they've got. They sound good. That's it. That's one of the that's the Gulf racing. That was a Ford GT, followed by the Rebellion, or the Vaillant Rebellion as it's known now. And there goes one of the DGM Mori Porsches. Oh, I can do with a pint of DGM Mori. Pair of Toyotas sounding very different to each other then, going by. And that's the third Toyota. All sounding very different. So clearly they're not pegging it at the moment. They're just getting the laps in and getting themselves ready for when it counts. Two more cars coming through. A G-Drive and another 11. And you don't need me to tell you what that was, belching its way around the track on the base as ever, the Corvettes. Another one of the G-Drive cars. I am fascinated by LMP2 this year, possibly for the first time ever. I've always been interested in LMP1, of course, always been interested in the GT cars, but LMP2 this year seems to have a resurgence in focus. I'm going to walk away from the cars, back down to the campsite where Zog and Stevie are enjoying the end of the curry that I brought with us. As you know, I make a homemade curry, freeze it. By the time we arrive, it's defrosted, heat it up. Perfect homemade curry, which is great if you're a vegetarian like me. But if you want to come to Le Mans and want to do what we do and come to the Travel Destinations campsite, you don't need to bring food with you. There is a very good sort of cafe bar area here that do lots of good food. Not always vegetarian, which is why I like to bring some stuff. Here's Stevie making friends with fellow campers. You making friends, Stevie?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yes, this gentleman recognised you from...
No, it's not me, it's someone else. He's better looking than me. Can't go anywhere these days. How are you enjoying it, gentlemen? Where have you come from? Can I come in? Can I come over there? These are our neighbours. People coming. What's your name, sir?
My name's Tim. Brother Vince.
You're Tim.
I'm Tim. Brother Vince.
Hello, Vince.
Jack. And we've got another fellow here, Bob.
Nice to meet you, sir. Can I come and sit down with you?
Can do, mate, yeah.
Where have you come from today?
Portsmouth.
So that's pretty handy for you. That's
Little ferry's just around the corner.
yeah, very handy.
Well, these guys live at Portsmouth, and I come from Basingstoke, so I've travelled down.
Yeah.
But it's the first time I've been here.
No, it's your first race.
Yeah. These guys have been here.
What kept you? Why haven't you come here before?
I've just been sort of going other places.
Okay.
You know, we go to Silverstone, drag racing.
Yeah.
But these guys have been here. How many times have you been here, Jack?
2004.
Since 2004, every year. It's like that. It's a habit, isn't it? It becomes
Once you get
addictive.
into it,
Yeah.
Until then, I couldn't do it because I had a job and you didn't know when you was going to get time off. So
Yeah.
I retired in 2001, so I could go every year then.
This is a good way to enjoy your retirement. I've stolen your chair, sir. Come and sit down. I like it here. You've got a nice barbecue going. It's toasty here. Very civilised. We're going to be dry this weekend. It's not going to rain, apparently. It's going to be dry all the way through. We'll see. So who are you supporting?
I'll just come along and just watch all the racing.
Here for the crack.
Yeah.
Good excuse. Yeah. I support everyone. I support the winner. Whoever wins, he's the guy. I always said he was going to win. Fellas, I'll see you later.
My favourites.
Aston Martin. He's wearing an Aston Martin shirt. But you haven't come in an Aston Martin. What have you come in?
I bought that, 2004 I bought the shirt. Yeah.
It's looking well, sir. Yeah, you haven't washed the colour out of it.
I haven't washed it.
You haven't washed it. I thought I could smell something. I thought it was the sewers. See you later, boys. Nice to meet you. Fantastic. The vibe's great, isn't it, Stevie?
It's just delightful. It's just there are just lovely people everywhere you go, and they're all here with one purpose.
Yeah. It's like a cult, isn't it? It's like we've come here to praise the gods of motorsport.
But it's so inclusive.
Oh, yeah, good point. Yeah.
It's like, it's fine. You come here for the first time, you don't know anything about cars, like me.
Yeah. This is your third Le Mans now.
It is. I still don't know anything about cars.
But you know about Le Mans. You know how to do Le Mans.
And today I learnt about Pit 56.
Garage 56.
Oh, damn it.
Close.
I was close, yes.
There's no Garage 56 car this year.
It really isn't.
Yeah, as far as I can tell. And the rumours are that next year it's going to be
let's
an
make
EV.
one.
Yeah, we should. Should we enter our Jaguar?
Yeah.
Garage 56. Under what category? Actually, in terms of fuel economy,
Yeah, we'd win.
yeah, I think we've probably done very well. It's certainly, I would say it's probably going to get in excess of 35, 40 miles, because we didn't really thrash it on the way here. We were very sensible,
Very
weren't we?
gentle. We didn't want to get any tickets.
Yeah. You enjoyed driving it?
Oh. I didn't want to stop.
And it was a good journey in. What happened this year? Why was it so easy?
Like, I still can't work it out. But the tent's up, we've eaten, we've drunk 2 bottles of cider, and it's still light.
I know. We got in early, that's what happened. And we stopped twice to buy the bits we needed and the booze. Yeah, it's nice to put your tent up when it's still light. That makes a big difference, doesn't it?
And not raining.
Yeah, and it's not going to rain all weekend. I shouldn't have said that now, should I?
I don't know. I don't really like the rain, but I do like the excitement it generates. Again, the uncertainty.
Do you know what Zog says about me and camping and rain? He says, the thing about you that really annoys me, Gareth, is when it rains, you see it as a challenge.
But it is. Well, certainly for those guys. For the camping, no, I could do without the rain.
Yeah.
But for the cars, I don't know.
Yeah, it adds a bit of spice when it's raining. There's that element of, one of the lead cars will make a mistake when it's wet and go out, and that gives someone else a chance, doesn't
They
it?
talk about different challenges, though, from the heat, and particularly for the tyres. We were just listening to on the radio, was just saying about the temperatures are going to create real problems for the tyres. So
Yeah.
that's a different
No two Le Mans is ever the same. No two Le Mans are ever the same. Are ever the same. Let me get me grammar right. English, third language for me. Yeah, you know, it's cold, it offers problems. If it's hot, it offers problems. If it's wet, it offers problems. Yeah.
Well, you've got it's 24 hours, so there's going to be problems.
Something's going to happen. Yeah. And you guys are going to hear all about it. Right, time for another cider, do you think?
Always.
Couldn't resist it. One more glass of cider, fine French cider, Breton cider, and we've come back up to sit on the ridge overlooking the Porsche curves again. The campsite is full, as it always is, so full that there wasn't actually room in the space that we were allocated for our tent and the big Jag. So we've moved the Jag just a little bit up the way to park next to some very nice Aston Martins, and I have to say that the people whose space we are borrowing to park our Jag in were very, very friendly and nice, and very happy about having our car next to them. The spirit here is very good. I was just a minute ago meeting two chaps from America who have come to Le Mans for the first time, and rather like Stevie on his first trip 2 years ago now, were completely wide-eyed. They were agog, mouth open, eyes absolutely couldn't be open anymore, absorbing every detail, taking photos, every car that comes past. That's great. The sun has come down. It is dark now. The floodlights have come on, and it's a little more difficult to identify the cars. You do get a chance, of course, because, as you know, the rules say that you have to have the numbers on the cars illuminated, and there are LEDs on the side that tell you which car is first, second or third in its class. Actually, two cars have just gone by without their numbers illuminated. I would imagine that the ACO will have something to say about that. Sog's listening to the commentary. Sog, you're listening to the commentary at the moment.
I am, yes.
Any news on lap records? Has the speed's gone up now that it's cooler?
I haven't heard that times are quicker, but Toyota are still quickest.
Yeah, of course. Which doesn't make you terribly happy as a Porsche fan.
Yeah, I am a big Porsche fan, but Toyota did everything they needed to do to win last year. It was awfully cool that they didn't actually get the win in the record after doing everything right and being, cruelly robbed at the last minute.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have a problem at all with Toyota beating Porsche at this race. I really wouldn't.
Yeah, I was musing on this, and part of me thinks that Toyota deserve to win this race this year. But having said that, anyone who wins it deserves to win it.
Whoever crosses the line first after 24 hours is the one that deserves to win it.
Yeah, it's such a challenge. It's not easy, is it?
Yeah, it's cruel, and it can be anything but fair. Even though that car wasn't even classified, everybody that watched the race, everybody that was here, remembers that as
and it's part of the drama,
a race-winning drive.
Yeah.
That's what it was. It was a race-winning drive that just happened not to end up with an actual win. For particular set of circumstances. That achievement is never going to go away. That said, I'm sure Toyota want the trophy.
Yeah.
They've
been trying for 30 years.
To stick on the shelf back at home, and let's hope they get it. Whether it's this year or another year, let's hope they get it.
Yep. I was just musing a few moments ago about how the LMP2 race this year is particularly interesting because everyone's got the same engine now. There are 4 different chassis, but it's slightly more standardised, and I don't like that in motorsport. I like the variation. I like everyone to arrive at the racetrack with a different set of technology and prove that that's the right one. But LMP2 was a little lost for me. But the changes that they've made in the last 12 months have made the LMP2 cars quicker on the straight than the LMP1s.
Yeah, and I was wondering about this because I couldn't help thinking if the LMP2s are going to be quicker at some points of the circuit than the LMP1 cars. Clearly, you could get P2 cars repassing P1 cars, but not for position. And in a sense, it's just been, more overtaking, in a race that has an awful lot of overtaking, some of which isn't done quite skillfully enough and leads to accidents as a result.
Yeah.
We all like overtaking, but overtaking for position. Yeah. Overtaking, it's just creating more overtaking moves, which maybe create more potential for accidents. I just wonder whether that's an entirely good thing or not.
Well, it adds to the complexity of the racing, where the LMP2 cars and the LMP1 cars both have to watch each other now. Previously it was the LMP2 cars who had to get out of the way of the LMP1s. Now the LMP1s are going to have to manage a bit better, aren't they?
Yeah, it's going to be a more complicated business.
Yes,
but it's good to see that at least in motorsport, the USA is presenting a good and beautiful face to the world. Those Ford GTs and the Corvettes look and sound fantastic.
I've just realised something. There isn't a single car running this year without a lid. There are no open-top cars at all. All the LMP2s are now covered.
Yeah.
Even last year we still had open-top LMP2s.
Yeah.
Every single car has got a roof on it this year.
And it's a hot year.
Oh, yeah.
As far as I'm aware, there's no rain forecast. It's been a lovely sunny day today. It's going to be hot all weekend. Let's hope the air conditioning's working in all in those cars.
Well, we've had occasions in the past. I remember one of the Peugeots was pulled in a few years ago because the temperature in the cockpit was too high.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, and there are limits on the operating temperature for the drivers.
Yeah.
And what they did with the LMP2 cars was cover the roofs, I believe, of the Peugeots with a sort of a reflective mylar film which stopped any heat from the sunlight from intruding. It bounced it back. Whether the LMP2s have got that sort of technology remains to be seen.
Well, I would say that's a pretty low bar in terms of technology. A bit of silver foil to reflect the sun. Yeah, we can all do that.
Hey, it worked for the Apollo space program on the moon quite well, didn't it?
Gold foil.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about. It was gold foil on the astronauts' visors.
Yeah.
And there was gold foil on a lot of components.
Yeah, on the descent stage of the lunar lander as well was covered in gold foil, wasn't it? The whole lower part of that vehicle. But hey, here we are, 50 years later. Well, hang on, not 50. It's 50 years in 2 years, isn't it? Yeah. And now motorsport is using that technology. It always has, though, hasn't it? There've always been components wrapped in gold stuff.
It's a remarkable material.
And what a remarkable event this is to be at. Now, I said that I was going to do something different this year that we've never done at Le Mans before, and that's going to be what we're going to do in the next part of this programme after this short break. The sound of engines revving in the background. I'm not sure what that is. Someone trying to get some power into their recharging device, I think, because there's no running on the circuit at the moment because it's the morning after the night before now. Hello, I said there'd be a little break between the last bit and this, and that break has been probably about 12 hours now. It's 1:15 lunchtime on Friday. No running today. It's the day of the drivers' parade, and we're enjoying a morning. We've enjoyed a morning at the campsite in the sunshine, preparing for this bit, which is something we've not done before on Gareth Jones on Speed. I thought it'd be worth doing at Le Mans, and that is to pick a year from Le Mans 85.
They missed a few years for the odd World War or two.
Yes, rain stopped play.
Yes.
Actually, rain never stops play, but war does here. Yes, and austerity, I think, at some point as well stopped racing here. I could be wrong on that. You'll know more than me. So I've tasked Stevie and Zog, and I've chosen a year as well, to do a brief presentation, just to look back at the rich history of the world's greatest motor race. And going first, because he drew the short straw, Mr. Paul Ireson, Zog to you and me. Zog, what year have you chosen?
I have chosen 1979.
Why?
Well, quite apart from the fact that during the 1979 race, the UK's number one single was Sunday Girl by Blondie.
I know how much you like Blondie.
Which, let's face it, as number one singles to be up there in the charts during the Le Mans 24 Hours, it's absolutely one of the best, possibly the best. I haven't actually crunched the numbers on that, but I think we can safely say that's definitely a podium for best number one during Le Mans. But the final result of the race, the slightly surprise result of the race, was a very satisfying one and a great bit of history. Now, going into the race, the picture was that the cars that most people would have expected to win were the Porsche 936s, who were heading up the Group 6 category, which is effectively the equivalent of the prototypes today.
Yep.
LMP1 today, Group 6 then, in as much as you can make these comparisons. The two Porsche 936s, one of them driven by Jackie Ickx and Brian Redman, the other by Bob Wallach, and I forget who the other driver was actually. No, I should have written that down, never mind.
It's okay.
They were first and second, heading up Group 6 field that included a couple of Mirages, Rondos. I think it was the first appearance by the Japanese Dome.
Oh, really?
Dome team. There was a Dome in the race. And then in the sort of equivalent of GT-ish category, which was Group 5 in 1979, there were a load of Porsche 935s, which were really quite quick. And in qualifying, the fastest of them were surprisingly close to the front of the field. As the race got underway, Jackie Ickx streaks away in the 936, the other 936 behind him, and things fall into more or less the order you'd expect. But in the early stages of the race, trouble starts to hit all of the Group 6 contenders.
All of them?
Pretty much. Ickx's car had trouble, had to change the rear wheels and do some fiddling about because they were fouling the brake calipers, lost some time because of that. The second 936 had engine trouble, lost about an hour having that seen to. Then the Mirage that had taken the lead had a problem. The Ickx car, then being driven by Redman, had a blowout, lost about 80 minutes being repaired as a result of the spin that followed. And so quite early on in the race, the leading Group 5 car, which was entered by Kramer Racing, Cologne-based team, they'd done a lot of work on this 935, and it was notably quicker than the other 935s. And they'd come up with this famous bit of clever bodywork for the car, taking advantage of the loophole in the rules to make a more aerodynamic, quicker car than really had been intended. They were in second place behind the then leading Mirage when rain hits, and there's a lot of rain, and the leading Mirage spins out. So in the 15th hour of the race, the Kramer Porsche has taken over the lead. But in second place, interestingly enough at this point, there is a car that is co-driven by Paul Newman, film star of the era, along with Dick Barber and Rolf Stommelen. And Newman was pretty handy. We see Patrick Dempsey.
Yeah.
We got to know him as an actor. Actually, turns out he's not a bad racing driver.
Yeah. And now team owner.
Yeah. A similar trajectory to Newman. So going through the night, the Kramer Porsche and the Newman Porsche, the Dick Barber Newman Porsche, are first and second. But those two cars did not have trouble-free runs themselves. In fact, the Kramer car, when it was way out in the lead, I mean, it was something like a 15-lap lead, had a problem with the fuel injector pump, which stopped the car out on the circuit, and the driver spent a long time trying to get a belt back on the engine so it would drive the injector belt so he could get back to the pits. Eventually made it back with a lead cut to 3 laps when they got back out after having got back to the pits, repaired, back out again. And the Newman car, the Dick Barber Newman car, could well have taken over the lead had they not had their own problems. They I think, hold a piston with about 20 minutes to go, and rather cleverly stopped the car just before the start-finish line and waited 20 minutes for the checkered flag to come out, and then limped the last lap and knew that the car wasn't going to be able to make it many more miles. So they'd stopped just for the end, waited for the checkered flag to come out, and as a result secured second place with the Kramer Porsche in first place. So a GT car rather than a prototype won the race. Paul Newman nearly won the race, actually came second. Whoa. That would have been quite a race to be at, I think.
Oh, yeah, correct. Yeah, I mean, it's got all the elements of Le Mans, hasn't it? The weather interfering, driver heroics out on the circuit trying to repair the car, and a great name, Paul Newman Racing. I mean, no wonder you chose it. I know you like the movies, I know you like Newman, I know you like Porsche. I'm not surprised you chose 79, and it wasn't really because of Blondie, was
Butch
it?
Cassidy and the Sundance Kid is one of those almost perfect movies.
It would only be perfect if it had a motor car in it. Zog, fantastic. Zog's nominated year, 1979. Another
good year.
Superb year for Le Mans. Good choice. Okay, we'll be back in a second with Stevie Sackin's choice of year. What's it going to be and why? This is the Gareth Jones on Speed coverage of the 2017 Le Mans 24 Hours, but you knew that already. This isn't a radio station that you've casually bumped into as you're tuning the dial, so I don't know why I need to say that. We're doing a thing where we choose a year and talk about it, a year in Le Mans' rich history. Stevie, your history at Le Mans only extends to the last 3 years in terms of attending it. So digging back deep into the rich history must have been a revelation for you.
It was a lot of fun. I mean, there's so many years to choose from. We've just said, it goes back a long way. So I was looking back at all sorts of different years, and I decided upon 1991.
Why?
Mazda.
Because you used to drive a Mazda. Before you got your Mercedes R-Class, you had a Mazda, what do they call it, MPV?
MPV, yeah.
A dramatic and unique year, I know that much, 1991. Go on, tell us a story.
Absolutely. So, 1991, so Mazda were driving this. There's lots of good things about this. I think my favourite thing is the fact that this was a rotary engine.
Yeah, a unique moment in the history.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was a very important year because in 1992, they were going to be banned. So this was the last chance. Well, I think they've since reintroduced them, but at the time, this was the last chance they were going to get to race with a rotary engine. Tried in 1990 with the 787, which was not such a successful year. So they came back in 91, having redesigned it, chassis by Nigel Stroud in the UK. They then shipped the tub all the way back to Mazda Speed in Tokyo, where it was built. They had a R26B rotary engine with 9,000 RPM, 700 brake horsepower, which they actually limited. They limited it to 8,500 RPM and 650 BPH for reliability. They knew that the car, the engine wasn't as fast as some of the other competitors in the race, so they were looking for reliability, which again is one of the rotary's great strengths.
Reliability?
Reliability.
No, I disagree with that. Well, they're fragile, aren't they?
The number of moving parts.
Okay, yeah.
Sort of basic engineering. If you have fewer moving parts, fewer things to go wrong.
Correct.
Theoretically. They knew they couldn't compete for outright pace, but they could compete on reliability. It was a strange year because the push with engines was for the 3.5 litre F1 based engines, and some of the teams were running those, and they were given a sort of a weird advantage in the grid because the qualifying was ignored and the 3.5 litre F1 engines were put to the front of the grid. So the main competitors, I suppose, what were they? Jaguar, Mercedes Sauber, Toyota, Peugeot. What else have I got?
These were what? Jaguar XJ R-14s?
XJ R-12.
12s that year, right?
Yeah.
Nice. Tom Walkinshaw.
That's right, Tom Walkinshaw Racing did. Peugeots were running with the 3.5 litre engines. Yep. Jaguar and Mercedes were not. They were running with the previous year's engines. And as a result, they were given a 100 kilo weight penalty, which was quite key. The weight was important because Mazda somehow convinced the authorities to only a weight restriction minimum weight of 830 kilos. So again, they had a good weight advantage over some of the other competitors.
I think they were given a fuel advantage as well. Were they allowed a larger fuel tank because they had a rotary engine, or they were allowed a larger fuel limit in terms of how much they used per lap or hour? Right. Is that right?
That's right. And so the Mazda team decided that they would set a kind of a target number of laps to go for, and if they could get to 367 laps, they thought that they would probably win the race.
Right.
So that was their target.
Right. It was interesting because last night we were having a conversation about drivers driving to a programme. You have a target lap speed, and there's a good example of that.
Exactly. It was perfect. Anyway, The race started, the Peugeots flew off into the lead and broke down pretty soon. I think almost as expected, the engine technology was not designed for endurance racing.
Correct.
And so using these F1 based engines, there was always likely to be reliability issues, and sure enough, the Peugeots broke pretty soon. The Mercedes were then looking very dominant. They were 1, 2, 3 after a quarter of the race. Jaguars were doing okay, but they were apparently hard to drive because of their weight penalty. 4 o'clock in the morning, the first Mercedes hit debris. Big delay as it was repaired in the pits. Then second Mercedes had a transmission problem. Again, lots of problems, took a long time to fix it. Third Mercedes was still out, still ahead. 12 o'clock on the Sunday lunchtime, about 3 hours from the end of the race, Mercedes ahead, the alternator mount broke, damaged the water pump, so it overheated, which at that point Johnny Herbert was then in the lead.
Yes.
In the 55 Mazda 787B, which he held on to until the end of the race. He actually missed the
podium celebrations.
So there were only Gasho and Weidler on the podium at the end.
Yeah, he was dehydrated and exhausted. He literally couldn't stand up. I say literally, he couldn't stand up. Yeah.
Although I read somewhere that he said that this was due to some dodgy spaghetti he had before his last bit. Whether or not that is true or not. But anyway, the Mazda won, the Jaguars were second, third and fourth, and they completed 362 laps, so 5 laps short of the target.
Fantastic.
Amazing.
I heard that car run. I was sitting about 20 feet away from where I'm sitting right now a few years ago, and they celebrated the anniversary of that win. Johnny did some demonstration laps around the circuit in the 787 in that glorious orange and green that it raced in. What a good looking car.
Beautiful.
And it sings. If you've never heard that rotary engine at full chat, it sings. It sounds to me like a motorcycle engine. That's a beautiful, beautiful, excellent choice of year.
Quick thought about that reliability thing, because as you sort of suggested with your reaction, the Mazda rotary engines often don't have the best reputation for reliability.
That's true.
But that's because of the road cars.
Yeah.
And the early road cars, in fact, not the properly developed road cars. And quite apart from, there's obviously a difference between an engine that's fully developed and one that's still having a few bugs ironed out. There's also a big difference between what's acceptable reliability or good reliability for a road car and what's good reliability for a race car.
Yeah.
And with a race car, it's perfectly okay to have an engine that runs absolutely reliably for 5,000 miles, you know, and then you know you're going to have to completely rebuild it.
Yeah.
That's fine, because, rotary engine, fewer moving parts, on the whole that's going to be simpler, but there's this critical thing with those rotary engines that has to do with the seal of the rotor in the, whatever you call the thing that the rotor is moving within, the block, basically. And it's the wearing out of the seals that is usually the problem.
Yeah.
Now, and I guess this is the kind of thing where it's probably relatively very easy to make a seal that's going to last the length of a 24-hour race. That seal that is brilliant in a 24-hour race may be useless in a road car, because after 6 months everyone's engines need rebuilding, and that's no good.
The problem with rotary engines is they had something called chatter marks. As the rotor rotates in the cylinder, it doesn't rotate evenly, and it creates high points and low points, so you lose your compression seal between the three elements of the rotor.
But that must be a mismatching of the
It's wear.
shape of, but what I mean is that if it's perfectly set up, the wear is going to be even. You will have even wear all around that shape, therefore you won't get any little dings or,
I think it comes from the bearings at the centre, which where, with vibration, with left and right hand turns, you get the rotor spinning in the cylinder, and it swings just enough, not very much, but just enough to create a weak and low point, because it's rotational rather than vertical, which is much easier to manage in a car going left and right. The solution, I believe, was Teflon. They used Teflon on the tips of the seals of the rotor, which is a bit more flexible and will fill any gaps which appear, and that's how they solved the chatter mark problem. I think that's right. I'm not a rotary engine expert, but from what I've gleaned over the years, that's it. Fascinating. All right, what's my choice? Well, give me a second to prepare and I'll tell you.
Okay, Gareth, you're up. Which year have you chosen?
I've chosen 1995. I'm not sure what was number one in June 1995, like you knew. I could probably work it out. But the reason I've chose it will become apparent at the end, I hope. It was an interesting year for two massive reasons. First was the weather. It was one of the wettest Le Mans ever. It rained for 17 of the 24 hours, and then there were continual showers for another 4 hours, so there wasn't very much dry running. And it was a combination of the weather and the rules of that year which allowed a unique win. Stevie chose a unique win. I've chosen a unique win as well. If you know Le Mans history, you'll know what was unique about 1985. If you don't know, let me tell you. As you know, the rules to which Le Mans is run every year alters every year, depending on the formula that they employ. And the ACO that year had a very good relationship with IMSA, who regulates sports car racing in the United States of America. So cars which raced in the IMSA series were eligible to race at Le Mans, and they're very different cars to the sort of cars traditionally run here, which are essentially sports prototypes very often, but not always. So if I go down the categories, I can tell you the cars that were racing. LM, World Sports Car Championship, which is the equivalent of LMP1. Prototypes with 4 litre or 3 litre turbo engines, rev limited to 8,500 RPM, 2-valve V8s, and that was in 1995, or 4-valve V12s. LMP2 cars were weight limited to 620 kilograms, production engines, narrower tyres with 12-inch tyres. And then the GT categories were split into GT1, 100 litre fuel tank, a minimum weight 900 kilograms, maximum tyre width of 14 inches, and LM GT2, so it was long before we had Pro and Am. Minimum weight 900 kilos, maximum tyre width 12 inches, so they were controlling the speeds of the GT cars by the width of the tyres. Interestingly, the previous year's one-off model rule, which Porsche had exploited with their GT1, was still in place. So this was a hybrid year where you had World Sports Car and GT1 cars still running. GT2 cars had to be based on production cars, of course, as they are today. But there were also some interesting sports prototypes. The Ferrari 333 SP was still running, one of my favourite Le Mans cars ever. And the Japanese were here in the GT classes. There were Toyota Supras, Nissan GTRs, and the Honda NSX. I mean, that's a good year for sports cars. That's a very, very rich field. The fastest cars in qualifying were the WR prototype. They were actually running in LMP2, and they got pole and second place, I think. But when the race played out, the weather took those out. Also running was Mario Andretti. Mario had won Formula One and many other sports car races, but never won at Le Mans, and this, he reckoned, was his last chance to win Le Mans. And he was in a Courage C34 with a Porsche engine. But unfortunately, regardless of his experience, I think this was at the Ford chicane, Andretti, who was as fast as anyone in the race, hit the wall, took off the rear wing, managed to get the car back to the pits, but lost his unassailable lead. And the combination of the weather taking out the WR Peugeots, they had windscreen problems, both of them. I'm not sure what that means right now, but the cars which were expected to win didn't win, which meant that the 6 McLarens that were running in the race, the McLaren F1 GTR, which had done amazingly well in the American sports car series that year, inherited the lead of the race. And of the 6 cars, it was the most unexpected of those 6 GTRs which actually won the race. It was the Lanzanti Motorsport Kokusai Kaihatsu Racing car. Lanzanti had been involved in the development of the car, and they were sort of almost like a last-minute entry. They actually ran the T car, the prototype development car, that famous black McLaren F1 GTR, won the race with an amazing team of drivers. Mansuri Sekiaya, who is a Japanese driver, of course, because of the sponsors. JJ Leto, first win by a Finn at Le Mans, and I love the Finns, and Yannick Dalmas. And they all put in incredible lap times, matching the other McLarens in the race, Andy Wallace, Derek Bell and Justin Bell, who finished third in the other McLaren F1 GTR. The McLaren also finished fourth with Mark Blundell, Ray Belm and Maurizio Sandosala, and yet another McLaren finished fifth, Fabien Giraud, Jean-Denis Deletraz and Oliver Grouillard, and another McLaren finished in 13th, and the other two McLarens, the other McLaren run by David Price Racing in partnership with West Competition, didn't finish but were classified 30th. Other cars running that year included the XJ220. Wouldn't you like to have seen the Jaguar XJ220 racing here? So I chose that for two reasons. It was a very, very rich year in terms of the range of cars which ran, and as far as I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, this was the last time the Le Mans 24 Hours was won by a car that you could buy and run on the road. The McLaren F1 wasn't run by a dedicated sports prototype. So 1995 will go down in history as possibly the wettest Le Mans ever, but the last one to be won by a class other than a dedicated racing car.
And also, I think I'm right in saying that that was the first year that the McLaren F1 GTRs were running at Le Mans, which makes it also
unique.
Probably unique. The thing is, they weren't run by McLaren. The team wasn't McLaren. The car was a McLaren, but they weren't run by... So it's possibly the only time that a car has won in its first appearance at Le Mans.
At its debut, I think you're right, yeah.
I can't think of another. Also, the McLaren F1 race car was slower in a straight line than the street car
because of the wing
aero, the aero kit that you put on it to make it work better as a race car. Takes a bit off the top speed, so actually the road car was quicker.
And
how neat is that?
Yeah, and because of the rules and regulations had to run to, the air restrictor size limited the amount of power that they could extract out of this engine for racing, which was a BMW V12, of course, and it only produced 7 brake horsepower more than the road car and won the race. Now, my main reason for choosing it was that unique achievement, and finally because I've been taking the mick out of McLaren recently because they've had a dreadful last 3 years. But let's not forget that McLaren are great, because if you can win Le Mans, you are phenomenal. Even if it wasn't run by McLaren, it was a McLaren car. Right, that's it for this massive edition, of the first of our, I think, 4 editions from Le Mans this year. So from Stevie Sakin, bye-bye. From Zog,
goodbye.
And from me, Gareth, see ya for some more Le Mans fun. And can someone have a word with that jabbernaut up there, that magpie cackling away? See ya.
To send us an email, see pictures, get song lyrics, join our Facebook fan site, follow us on Twitter, or to find out about sponsorship opportunities, go to GarethJones.tv. Gareth Jones on Speed is made in London by Whiz Bang.
Gareth Jones on Speed!